Where were you on September 11th, 2001? What were you doing? Was the news on? What was playing at 8:45 a.m.? Was it a commercial, the weather report, a local story? What was playing at 8:46? Did you see pictures of burning buildings, smoke, fire? What did you think? What was on at 8:47? How about at 9:04 when the second plane hit? And at 9:37? What about the days and weeks after? What did you think? 9/11 was one of the most traumatic, shocking events to happen to Americans in quite some time. It rocked our foundation and made us question how we could rebuild after our safety was threatened to such an extent.
At the World Trade Center in New York City. One report said, and we can't confirm any of this, that a plane may have hit one of the two towers of the World Trade Center, but again, you're seeing the live pictures here.
Then there was a loud explosion and immediately lots of screaming out on the street. There is more and more fire and smoke enveloping the very top of the building. And as fire crews are descending on this area, it does not appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
That looks like a second plane.
That just exploded.
We just saw another plane coming in from the side. So this looks like it is some sort of a concerted effort to attack the World Trade Center that is underway. Oh, this is terrifying. Awful.
Here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the two towers. A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
The second building that was hit by the plane has just completely collapsed.
We're having a problem at the North Tower, Peter.
Let's look at the North Tower quickly.
Seems to be coming down.
Oh my God. Both trade towers, where thousands of people work on this day, Tuesday, have now been attacked and destroyed.
How could we recover from something like this? We thought terrorist attacks didn't happen in the United States. Yet they did. And we had to reform our identity after 9/11. And this was the subject of my inquiry. How did Americans form their identity after the attacks of 9/11? To answer this question, I read The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, and Falling Man by Don DeLillo. Each book focused on how the protagonist came to terms with the attacks of 9/11 and their aftermath. Khaled Hosseini began to write The Kite Runner 6 months prior to 9/11, and it was published in 2003. It details how the protagonist Amir had to reconcile his memories of the Afghanistan of his childhood with the Afghanistan of today. Amir lived in Afghanistan during the 1970s, during a time of peace. He and his father had to leave Afghanistan in the 1980s when the Soviet Union invaded. They moved to the United States, and Amir did not return to Afghanistan for another 20 years. When he returned, Afghanistan was controlled by the Taliban and was completely changed from his childhood home. Just months after he came back to the United States, the 9/11 terrorist attacks occurred. Amir could not believe that Afghanistan was controlled by radicals, and that people from his country could be capable of doing something like this. These people were not the people of his childhood, and so he joined humanitarian groups to aid in rebuilding after 9/11 out of a sense of civic duty. He identified the United States as being his homeland, and that he himself was an American, so he wanted to do what he could to help his country. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close was published in 2005 and tells the story of how a young boy named Oscar coped with the death of his father during the 9/11 attacks. His father, Thomas, was working in the World Trade Center on the day of the attack. Thomas calls home in the time between the plane crashes and when the towers fell, but Oscar did not answer. Oscar then dealt with tremendous guilt about not saying goodbye to his father throughout the novel. He also hated his mother because he thought she wasn't grieving enough over his father's death. However, at the end of his journey overcoming his grief and releasing his guilt and anger, he comes to terms with his father's death, reconciled with his mother, and began to move on with his life. Falling Man was published in 2007 and details how Keith Nedeker dealt with escaping from the World Trade Center before the attacks. Keith left his office in the World Trade Center just before the first plane hit. He was not gravely injured, but the memories of seeing the destruction the attacks caused stuck with him. To begin his recovery, he reunited with his estranged wife and son, and together they tried to move forward. Keith constantly thought of the friends he lost in the towers. His wife Leanne became very religious, and their son checked outside his window every day for another plane or a falling man. However, through their unity as a family, they were able to move on with their lives, and they were never able to forget the events of 9/11. After 9/11, Americans united together to come to terms with the attacks. During this time of fear, we needed support from those around us. The Red Cross began asking for donations to help victims, and Americans everywhere banded together. Many people held candlelight vigils, tributes to those who were lost or injured, and moments of silence throughout the United States. America grieved together. The American flag appeared everywhere, on clothing, in windows, on cars. These same things were taking place in literature as characters also moved forward with their lives. Amir joined relief groups, Oscar and Keith both reunited with their families, and Leanne joined religion to help her. These acts were common throughout the United States after 9/11. We needed someone to be there for us, whether it be our families, our friends, or religious figures. If we had someone there to help, we could move forward. As one man said during a candlelight vigil, a sense of unity. We all feel differently about what to do in response, but everybody seems to agree that we've got to be together no matter what happens. So you get a little bit of hope in togetherness. These acts of solidarity show how Americans formed their identity. We did not let the attacks strip us of who we are. America prides itself on being a strong, independent nation. The terrorist attacks would not change how we thought of ourselves. We would not let others, or even ourselves, consider us as weak or afraid. We took a heavy blow that shook our morale and our faith in our country, but we united in the end. We put our differences aside and came together when it was needed most. 9/11 has left a lasting impact on us. It can be seen in literature, movies, and throughout the media. We have taken the events to heart and make it known that we can survive anything, so long as we are a united front. We've been beaten down before, but we will always get right back up. 9/11 was so profound, and it affected so many people, and we continue to talk about it today. And as is common with shocking events, many of us remember exactly where we were on the day of the attacks. We remember either waking up to the news, or calling a loved one right away, or giving the person closest to us a hug. Human interaction was everything after the attacks. Strangers were no longer strangers, but friends. We all shared a common story. We survived a terrorist attack. We were able to live through it and become stronger because of it. We pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and worked to make things better. 9/11 is a part of who we are as a nation. We all felt the same things: grief, fear, anger, and we all came together as one in order to move forward. No one will forget 9/11 and the effect it had on our country, and this is something that we will continue to remember.
Our hearts still ache for the futures snatched away, the lives that might have been.
You may be gone, but you are truly not forgotten.
A nation that stands tall and united and unafraid, because no act of terror can match the strength or the character of our country. Like the Great Wall and bedrock that embrace us today, nothing can ever break us. Nothing can change who we are as Americans.